What's very interesting about giving a gazillion shiurim a week is that not only do you have to find material to share with others, you have to find new material to share with yourself. In other words, you have to generate new thoughts because there's a limit how many times you can share thoughts with yourself that just are repetitive. And I'll be honest, some of the shiurim I feel sometimes do get repetitive. Certain ideas of staying strong and grit and looking inwards, etc. The certain ideas. But to generate new ideas and new concepts is a challenge, especially when life feels like Groundhog Day. I mean it. If there's ever a movie that I would call my favorite, the concept at least, it's Groundhog Day. This idea that you just wake up and every single day is exactly the same. So over here, it's not so much Groundhog Day. I told Chaya it feels more like Groundhog Week. It just feels like every week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, Shabbos. Same meals on every night of the week, and same meals every Friday night, and same people around the table, and same davening on Shabbos morning, and it's like literally Groundhog Week. If you haven't watched that movie and you have some time, it's an old movie from the early 90s, I believe. It's a good movie. Basically, this idea that you just wake up and the same day repeats. Now, that's what it's feeling like. It's feeling very much like Groundhog Week. It's feeling like you're in a time warp where, I know it's Wednesday today, but if you told me what's the difference between this Wednesday and last Wednesday, it's exactly the same. I never considered myself a very structured person. Not terribly unstructured, but not terribly structured. But believe me, I've become structured in this time because it's just like life is becoming smaller and smaller in its experiences, which on the one side might feel terrible. I'm having less and less experiences. But what's interesting is I'm having a lot more me time. And I think in our generation, we forgot what me time looks like. Think about the person who lived in the city, in the shtetl 200 years ago, Jew, non-Jew, irrelevant, and what their life looked like and compare it to our lives now. Once upon a time, if you lived in a Eastern European or Western European home, came winter, the days were 6, 7 hours long, 8 max. Pretty much the sun rose at 8 in the morning and sunset at 4. For 16 hours, you were frozen stiff, so you couldn't really go out of the house. The weather in Europe is terrible, and in America for that matter. And you spend 16 hours under your covers. Even if you're a person that doesn't sleep 16 hours, you're 16 hours under the covers. So you get your 8 hours, 10 hours of sleep. What do you do the rest of the time? You can't afford electricity. There is no electricity. You can't light candles every single night. So what do? You think. Think about it. You think. Life once upon a time, definitely in the winter months, but even in the summer months. Okay, so the night was 9, 10 hours, but you can't, again, burn electricity. You don't have that much entertainment to do. You don't have a phone. There's a limit how many letters you're writing. But even if you're writing letters, it's very meditative to write letters. So think about the busiest person 200 years ago compared to the most bored person in 2020. No matter how busy you wanted to be 200 years ago, there was a limit. The weather affected it. The lack of technology affected it. And even when you were busy, what kind of stuff were you busy with? You're going down to the river and washing clothes. It might be laborious, but it's not mental intensive. So you chat with your friends. Think. You're walking to the water thing in the middle of this town where you have the well. You're thinking. Get some water, put it on your shoulder, walk back, you're thinking. Come home, you want to warm up a bath, you have to light a fire, put the water on, that bucket of water on the fire, allow it to warm a bit. More time, more time, more time. During this time, you're never getting to pick up your phone, you're never getting to turn on the TV. So what are you doing? Maybe having fantasies. If it's daytime, you're maybe reading a book. If If it's nighttime, forget about it. And I think when people say they wish they could live in the old shtetl, I think that's what they mean. I think what they mean is, I wish I could live in a universe of simplicity, because in simplicity is where the human being feels the most comfortable. I gave a shir about evolution last night. I hope you watch it. It's an intense shir, but I think it's interesting. And I've said that many times, people will explain certain things based on evolutionary biology. The reason why we like being quiet and peaceful is because once upon a time we lived in the forest. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the human being naturally, the way Hashem created us, cannot multi-think. We may be multitask, we can't multi-think. And definitely the important thoughts. Yeah, you could think about, okay, which errands do I have to do today? But that's not thought. That's just habit, recognition, basic awareness of living, but it's not deep. There's nothing deep about, okay, this is what I have to do today. Real thought cannot settle in a busy mind. And if there's one concept, and you'll agree with me because many of you have heard me talking for years, one thing I've been saying over and over is we're over busy. We're way too busy for our own sanity. And the problem with busyness is not only that it affects how involved you are in religion, not only affects how involved you are with your spouse or with your children. The problem with busy is it affects you. I feel that my quality of me, or what I would call quality of life in the best sense of the word, not the background behind me, the true quality of life, cannot happen when my mind is all over the place. In other words, today, busy is a badge of honor. I'm not saying today in 2020, I'm saying in the world we lived in till 4 or 5 months ago, busy was a badge of honor. Writing diaries was for people from a certain age and older, or very, artistic people. But this idea of reflecting, processing, making sense, having time just to have not only chit chat, which is also important, but like deep chit chat, like deep thoughts and reflections and making sense of life, etc. All that kind of stuff we lost out of. We did. And one of the things that I'm taking out of COVID, and I'm not taking because like I'm making a resolution to take it, but what COVID forced upon me and forced upon you, and I know it forced upon you because there's no question that my community is listening to more shiurim now than it's ever listened before. I had one person tell me, Rabbi, I've listened to more shiurim the last 4 months than my entire life, and I believe them. I'll be honest, I've given more shiurim than I've usually given. I mean, although we used to have the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday before, but nevertheless, like pushing myself at nights and videos and audio, etc., recording everything, which has been a very interesting experience for me. So in this experience, what's happening is I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper into my mind. My mind is allowing me, slowly but surely, it's getting cleared out. There's a limit how busy I can keep it when my life is confined to 118 trillion. That's where it is. The 400 square meters I'm living in is my universe, and that's where my universe ends. And this is similar to what I spoke about yesterday, this idea 2 days ago, travel inward. But this is more than that. It's not only travel inward, it's just be. Be. There's no busyness. There's almost no distraction. There is distraction if you choose. For example, I'm on Facebook, and on Facebook recently, it's become quite active about farm murders, which is an absolute crime. But I'll be honest, every time I read about a farm murder, it puts me in a bad mood. And other than signing petitions, there's very little that at my current role in my life that I'm gonna do about it. Not because it's not an important thing, but each person has to choose their things they champion. So I had to take myself off those groups, not because I don't believe in their cause. It was causing me anxiety, and anxiety that just hurt me. Reading about this murder and this rape and this and that. It's like, So today, I could still keep myself busy if I go on news and I go on social media and I drive myself insane with every scandal. I have a policy now on my Facebook. The second somebody starts posting negativity, I unfollow them. I don't unfriend them. They'll never know, but I unfollow them. I can't. Not because you're a bad person, you're a good person, God loves you, I love you too. I just can't. I just can't. I want my mind to be clear. It's such a gift that I don't know if I'll ever have again in my life. Or at least not in the time raising a bunch of kids and building my life together, maybe when I'm 65. But to be able to be in my mid-30s and have an opportunity to quiet my mind, not just for 3-week holiday, but for months and months and months. It's allowing a whole different universe to surface within me and within you. Not only is it allowing wisdom, it's allowing a different kind of knowledge. I'll give you an example. There is no way in the world I could have gotten to know my kids and my wife the way I've gotten to know them in 4 months, maybe even over years. And the truth is, even if I would get to know them, it would be them in 5 years' time. It wouldn't be them now. To really get to know my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old, etc., and to really know them because we're in a similar space the whole day, because I'm interacting with them on a constant basis. I'm getting to know a world that my busyness till now didn't allow me to know. It wasn't a punishment. It's when your mind is fragmented, when your mind is ADD, and we live in an ADD time. In other words, even if you're not diagnosed with ADD, you're living an ADD lifestyle on the most part. You're missing out on any insights that's longer than 5 seconds. Think about it. When you're ADD, you cannot really settle down and hear an idea. It's hard. I was thinking to myself, last night's share was a very in-depth share, and I was sure that I would lose 50% of my crowd halfway through. Thank God. It was a relatively small crowd, but whoever showed up stayed, which for me was a gift. And thinking to myself, if I had given such an in-depth share 6 months ago, first of all, I would have to schlep people out at night. Fine. Then they have to sit in front of a screen. I would have a PowerPoint. I would be standing there and presenting them lots of data, lots of fact that they're looking from far away. They've had a long day at work. Bam, bam, bam. I would have a bunch of heads down. I did have one older person fall asleep last night, and he reached out to me this morning and asked for a recording. But on the most part, their mind is more clear. There's no question. You've had an intake of information, not only quantity-wise, the amount of shiurim you've listened to or lectures, but quality-wise, the way it's penetrated you, the way it's entered you, the way it's transformed you. You've had an experience which for many of us is unfamiliar since our days in school. Now, even today's school is a busy place, but at least when I was going to school, school wasn't the busiest place. You pretty much lived in the whole universe was just school. We didn't have any extramurals. We didn't have anywhere to run other than school. So school, in a way, was that kind of universe where you were kind of locked into a universe. Call it Groundhog Week. But the point is, you're locked into a universe with not too much going on beyond your friends sitting on both sides of you and sitting across you. There's not much going on in your universe, unless you have major drama at home, whatever. But if you're coming from a relatively stable home, your parents are giving you what you need. Home is not a place of intense drama. So your universe is pretty much narrow. It's a narrow universe. It's what a child gets. We try to keep our child's universe relatively small. I know some parents think they have to expose their kid to everything. It's like a mitzvah. I don't know. I don't have, at the right time, at the right place for each child. I'm not sure that's where I need to be going. But to have that experience again, years after out of school, where you pretty much, your mind is quiet, I think is a gift. It really is. Now, I don't think we're all using the gift like geniuses. I think some of us are wasting the gift. I think I, at times, am wasting the gift. I read an article from somebody who was saying, remember all the resolutions we made at the beginning of COVID? We're going to write books and we're going to make, cool music and we're going to lose weight and we're going to exercise because we have more time in our hands than ever before. No, I don't think most of us have really changed our whole selves. But one thing that no question, you're less busy than you were before. It's impossible to be as busy unless you're still going to work. But even if you're going to work, it's not the same intensity. You might be more anxious because the money's not coming in the way it used to, fine. But there's still space in your mind that you didn't have in a long time. What are you filling that space with? I feel like it's Hashem giving us the opportunity, it's God giving us the opportunity to jump ahead in our maturity, to push us forward and allow us to advance in our level of maturity. I think that's extremely, it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to allow yourself to jump ahead in maturity, to be able to get wisdom that maybe would have taken you 2 years, in 4 months. Because maturity only comes through reflection. Sometimes you look at your teenager and you're like, grow up! As if it's like some kind of thing. They wake up the next morning and they're grown up. When do they grow up? When does a kid become an adult? I'm not talking about age-wise. When does a kid become an adult? It's when they suddenly start realizing other people's feelings, when they suddenly start realizing the complexities of life, when they suddenly start forgiving people for imperfections and forgiving themselves for imperfections. In other words, becoming an adult, becoming a mature person, a big part of it is reflection. Some people think that just to become a mature person means you get a license. Now you could drive. You're out of school, so now you're independent. You could get alcohol, so now you could be drunk. You can hang out with your friends with relatively few limits. Life is awesome, all that great privileges. That's not maturity. That's a jail-free card that we give to each child who turns 18. Society gives 18-year-olds, independent of how mature you are, irrelevant. Here. Now you could buy as much alcohol you want, fine, maybe some places 21. You could drive how fast you want. You could do what you want. Go wild. Just be safe. Don't do anything stupid and don't come back pregnant. And but maturity has nothing to do with an age. You could be 50 years old and absolutely immature. And believe me, I've met them. They're amongst us. You might know them quite intimately. Most women would say that their husband is their fourth or third child. Because what's maturity? What's maturity? To get out of yourself, to be bigger than your natural animal energy, to be awesome, to be incredible, to be I'll put it this way. Let's talk about apes, our relatives, our grandmothers. An ape can never be bigger than who it is. If it's a 500-pound primate and it's sitting there, it could only be that 500 pounds. That's what it is. It is what fits in that space. You, on the other hand, you can be so much bigger than yourself. You can be a petite, small little person, but your maturity takes so much space that your maturity takes up so much space that you absolutely transform others. that you walk in and your energy is so much bigger than your, I don't know, 70, 80, 90 kilo. Because a primate, an animal, can only take up as much space as they are. They can't be bigger than themselves. We, the human being, can be so much greater than our natural animal body. We can be so much more virtuous than the lowest part of ourselves. We can outgrow our body and have an impact that's resonant and powerful beyond the space, the physical space we take up. We can be bigger than ourselves. And that's what true maturity and spiritual growth is, the ability to be bigger than what your physical reality takes up. As I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, a human being comes into the world. Think about the amount of food that you eat in your lifetime. How much food does a person eat in their lifetime? Let's see what Google says. How much plastic and things of this world do we use in our lifetime? How much petrol do we use in our lifetime? What do we give back? I don't know. Not much. During a lifetime, the average person eats 35 tons of food. The average American, as of 2011, eats in 1 year just under 2,000 pounds of food per year. Not bad. Tons of food, tons of water, drinking, showering. Pretty much, other than, using the latrine, we don't really give back much. And ask yourself, so I came here, ate 15 tons of food, used gazillion gallons of water, used lots of dishes and lots of stuff. I pretty much consumed a big part of what this planet has to offer. And then 120 years come and decompose. What have I added? What did the world walk out with from me? Only two things. Love and goodness. It's only two things that you really make a positive difference in. You can do a lot of damage, but love and goodness. So we sit in this world and we take and take and take. At least if we're somewhat religious, or we make a bracha before we drink the water just to show some gratitude. But we're taking, we're just constantly taking. Consuming it. And what does God ask from us? Okay, fine, here's my world. Consume it, take from it, do what you want. Now what? Now become a great person. Bring greatness to this world. Bring goodness. Bring love. Yes, God's taken away a lot of privileges from us during this time, but we still, thank God, each and every one of us, we've just signed on, we're on Wi-Fi, we ate breakfast this morning, we're gonna go eat lunch if we haven't yet. Our life is pretty blessed. We're still consuming of this world, believe me. And now that we're consuming and taking and taking and taking, what are we giving back? And that's a question that I would ask. I would ask any person. You could ask it to your husband as well. You could ask somebody and ask the simple question: what are you giving back? Okay, you've taken money. You've taken products and you've given it to somebody else. You've taken from God's world, you've shared it, you've done business, all good. But what are you giving back? Think about it. Think about how much we take from this world in our lifetime. And even if you're the most energy conscious, green person on the planet, you're still eating an incredible amount of vegetation. You might not be eating animals, you're eating lots of vegetables. You're consuming a lot of water. And the drought in Cape Town a few years ago made us realize how much we're consuming and how what we take actually has a huge effect. And I think now, at least for me, I could talk. Now that I'm home, in certain ways I'm consuming more. I never necessarily had 3 full meals. These days I make sure with the food very accessible, it becomes more tempting. So in some ways I'm consuming more than ever before. Not petrol. And this is a time to dig deep. And that's why I sent that video about men. I'll be honest, I don't have any good answers. I've heard many people give me excuses in order to explain it. People are busy. People have lives. Good excuses, but ultimately they're not answers, they're excuses. In other words, they're not solving the problem. Because I believe each and every one of us needs to live with meaning, especially those who are tired from life and are beaten up from life. They need meaning more than any one of us. So maybe, just maybe, during this time of COVID, God comes and says, there's not much more to do other than to be in your own head. I mean, you could watch Netflix all day, but other than that. So go into your head. It's not a bad thing. And think. I'll be honest, someone brought it up earlier. What do you tell people who are not interested? I wouldn't start talking about religion or faith. The first thing is, even if we could get our spouses or our children to think about anything, any topic bigger than themselves, an ideology, a thought, something a little deeper than sports and politics and business. Where's the world going? How do you see it? Are you afraid? Do you think the marriage has thrived these months or not? Why has it happened? What's the cause of it? Where do you think it could go? In other words, I would say, and like I found it for myself, even Chaya and myself and the kids, we're having more deep conversations we've ever had, or at least in a long time. Because this space of seeing each other and not having that much to do facilitates it. Don't talk about religion. Forget religion for the next while. Talk about life. Talk about depth. We weren't put into this world just to make a living. And we weren't put into this world just to raise kids. And we weren't put into this world just to consume. And we weren't put into this world to have a nice bank account in an offshore bank. We weren't. And believe me, big secret, I'm going to break the news to you. Having known a lot of people who are of wealth and a lot of people who aren't. You think that once you have that bank account in Switzerland, you'll be happy? I know it's a cliche, but I've known it from personal. And you think that the wars of your inheritance after your time is up is not going to be 10 times worse than anybody else. So really, that's the point of life? Is the point of life just to consume, to get? What is it? Why are you here? What's the point of this? Unfortunately, I found myself once or twice a week in the past few months in the cemetery. Burial after burial after burial. And every time it's the same thought process. I already know that, unfortunately, I know the cemetery from the back of my hand. But every single time it's the same thought. All these people thought in their lifetime that what they're doing was important. But how much of it was? How much of what you're doing, and I'll put it this way, how much of what you're doing will be even one word on your grave? Because all the words on the grave are love, gentleness, kindness, meaning, impact. Those are the words. So if you allocated 24 hours of your day, 7 days a week, 30 days a month, how many of those hours, days, weeks are contributing to that one word? In other words, is that word love that's going to be put on your grave going to mean anything? Now is a time for the simpler and better things of life to surface. No holidays. No crazy planning where to go. Very few extramurals. No driving around. Minimal shopping. Minimal distraction, minimal coffee dates, minimal everything. So go in. Go in. Discover the wealth that's waiting to surface. And discover the wisdom that's waiting to surface. Have conversations at dinner. I think it's a better time than ever before to enforce no phones by dinner. Literally, we're fine. We're not all busy. We're not all that busy. There's not that much going on. Put your phone away. Because it's an incredible thing that happens when your mind becomes as peaceful as the beach in my background. Your life becomes as beautiful as the beach in my background. Peace is one of the greatest gifts we want. We ask God for peace, but often we think it means peace from radical politics, peace from crime. Sure, we want that peace. But the single most important peace is the peace that has nothing to do with the gangster and the mobster and the radical politics and your economy. The peace that you need is just a quiet mind, serenity in your mind. So I wish us all that we find that serenity, that we're able to take this time of silence. Hello, silence, my dear friend. It's good to see you again. Another song. In the wails of silence, echo in the walls of silence. Hello, silence, my old friend was written 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Maybe it's time to say hello, silence, and bring Simon and Garfunkel out of the grave. Because silence is a gift. It's a reflective gift. Shkayach, everybody. Thank you so much for joining.